What's up, guys? Trade after trade after trade, and now we get an unexpected one. Rasmus Sandin is a member of the Washington Capitals. Erik Gustafsson and a first round pick, Boston's first round pick, gets traded to Toronto. We all know that Erik Gustafsson was in negotiations with the Washington Capitals in terms of a new contract, and so were other players on the Capitals. Unfortunately, a deal was not reached, and this is why he gets traded. Rasmus Sandin, I would have never thought that he would be the piece getting traded. I thought Kerfoot was going to be traded, or Justin Hall, or Engvall were going to be the guys out after the McCabe and Lafferty deal. But unfortunately, that's not the case. They get an experienced veteran in Gustafsson, who is was having a fantastic uh, season with the Washington Capitals. Really was, surprising a lot of people. I'd never seen him play that good for the last couple of years. Not even with the Montreal Canadiens, he was that good. So I'm glad to see that Gustafsson is having a resurgent season, but he finds himself in this blockbuster deal. And Rasmus Sandin, being very young, he's going to the rebuilding or retooling Washington Capitals. What are your thoughts on this, Luca?
It's a bit of a surprise in my opinion, if you had to ask me. I mean, look, I think Rasmus Sandin is one of those players that super young. He's only 22. Was having a good season this year. 20 points, 4 goals, 16 assists in 52 games with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm kind of surprised. I know that the Leafs have a logjam on defense, but I thought, for sure Justin Hall or potentially even, someone like I don't even know, anyone but like Rasmus Sandin essentially would have been traded at that point. And I'm just surprised that they traded Rasmus Sandin. He's, like I said, he's 22 years old, has had a really good season with Toronto. And I just, I didn't expect that type of situation to happen. And then you go and look at Erik Gustafsson and he's a good defenseman. I mean, he's having great season this year, 38 points in 61 games. He's an offensive defenseman. You know what you're going to get with him. He's a guy that you can put on your power play. He's done well for Washington this year. And so I think that it's a good move for the Leafs in the sense where they get Gustafsson and a first round pick, because Sandin does have a lot of value. But I just kind of don't understand this deal for the Leafs. You're essentially trading a young defenseman who's 22 for a guy who's 30 and having a decent, not a career year, because the year that he had in Chicago was better, but for a guy who, to be honest, isn't really that good defensively, only really good offensively. And okay, you got a first round pick. I'm not saying it's a bad trade. I just don't understand why you would trade Rasmus Sandin. I don't really get, to be
Yeah, and in
honest.
terms of his cap hit, $1.4 million. He has another season after this left on his contract. So his contract ends in 2023, 2024. He's going to be an RFA, so they have control of his rights. Sandin was playing third pairing minutes with Jake. Well, he was supposed to be playing with Jake McCabe, who's supposed to be making his debut very shortly. And now he's not going to be there. It's going to be Erik Gustafsson who takes his spot. And in terms of the Washington Capitals, Erik Gustafsson was playing second pairing minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sandin in the top four for Washington. They already got rid of Orlov. Now Gustafsson is on his way out as well. So now it opens up room for Sandin to become a top four pairing defenseman for the Washington Capitals. In terms of Erik Gustafsson, 800K in terms of his salary. He's a UFA at the end of this year. The Washington Capitals add a guy like Gustafsson because they're competing for the playoffs, and they're going to be going head to head, most probably against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And they lost last year in 7 games. This year, Toronto wants to be ready to take on Tampa and beat them and advance to the second round for the first time since 2004. So I do believe that long term, Washington wins this deal. Short term, uh, the Toronto Maple Leafs win this deal, but it all depends how it affects them come playoff time. And Sandin, a lot of people are saying that he was going to become the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs decor, and now he's gone, he's traded. So I mean, I don't know what to expect from this. I think this is an absolutely blindsided move for many people. I was saying that Dubas was making banger moves each time. This move is questionable in my opinion. It could go either way.
It's it's one of those moves where look, and I understand where the Leafs are coming from in the sense where look, you're trying to compete for the playoffs, and not compete for the playoffs, trying to compete in the playoffs. You're trying to essentially, play against play against the Tampa Bay Lightning, try to beat them, get past the first round. I understand all of that, but I don't think that Erik Gustafsson, the first round pick is good. That's not a bad deal. I think if you look at it from that perspective, they have another first round pick. They can use it to potentially trade it, or they can use it as just for draft capital. It's there as another pick essentially that could be used. So in that sense, I don't mind it. But when I look at Erik Gustafsson, I'm not really impressed with him. Like, he's 30 years old. Like I said, he might turn into something in Toronto. He's a UFA. But with Rasmus Sandin, he's very good. He's had some really good, games for Toronto. He's super young. And kind of like what Jay Fresh said here, he's crushed the third pairing minutes for the Leafs in the past 2 seasons. He's a solid defenseman. I think Washington do very, very well in this deal. I know that they're selling off a lot of assets. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. But I think Sandin has the potential to be a top four defenseman. And they've essentially got a top four defenseman for a first round pick and Erik Gustafsson. It's a price to pay for sure. I don't think it's obviously going to be a low first round pick considering it's Boston. But even at that, I just think that there's a lot of young, like Rasmus Sandin's a good young talent to bet on. And I think that's what Washington's trying to do. And as for Toronto, I mean, listen, you got a first round pick and Gustavsson, who when he played for Montreal, I wasn't too high on him. I know lately he's been playing better, but I don't think he makes the Toronto Maple Leafs that much better, in my opinion.
And
That's my personal opinion.
there's rumors saying that the Leafs want to package that first round pick that they just acquired from the Washington Capitals, previously owned by the Boston Bruins, for a potential blockbuster trade. It seems like Kyle Dubas really wants that extension to be the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs
Now,
for years to come.
Now, what's crazy about all of this, right? And you talked about it in the last in the McCabe and Lafferty deal, and Kyle Dubas is working the phones, man. You got to give him credit where credit's due. But this is make or break it, essentially, right? If this doesn't work, there's a problem, right? And so I think that for Toronto, this is about. Now you're sending a message to the league. We know what Toronto's trying to do. We get what Toronto's trying to do. And this isn't just trying to go and get past the first round. Now I think they're trying to compete for a cup. They're trying to win it. They got a guy with term and Jake McCabe in that deal with Sam Lafferty as well. I'm shocked that Rasmus Sandin got traded, to be honest. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought Justin Hall, even Alex Kerfoot potentially would have been dealt. I didn't see this coming. I know that there was a lot of issues with Sandin in terms of his contract, and he had to sit out a bit, and there wasn't really a big relationship between him and Dubas. But he's still young, man. He's 22 years old. Like, this guy can turn into something really, really good. And I know Toronto's done a good job, and I'm hoping that Washington, is able to develop him into the defenseman that he's supposed to be. Because if he can turn into what Dmitry Orlov essentially was for Washington, that'd be great. Obviously, he's smaller. He's not as agile. But if he could turn into kind of what Dmitry Orlov was for Washington, I think in the future, I think the Caps would be very happy with that.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a serviceable, player to learn from a guy like John Carlson on the Washington Capitals. And we're hearing a lot of people from the Capitals and that they're very happy with this deal, and you guys should be, because they're retooling or rebuilding or whatever terminology they want to use, but they're reshaping the team essentially. You want to get younger, and as long as Ovi's there, they're going to want to be competitive, and I think they will be very active during the off season to continue to be a competitive team. But as of right now, I think they're writing off this season, and they just want to get as many picks and prospects as possible.
And I'm reading some of the comments of it, okay, and they're basically saying like this guy Kenneth Lou. I'm just gonna bring up this comment. He goes, can't be confident with Sandy in the playoffs. Understood, but Gustafsson's not that good in the playoffs either. And that's kind of what I like. This is based on a guy who's watched him play in Montreal in that series where the Habs made it to the Cup Finals. I've watched Erik Gustafsson play 2 years ago on a Montreal team that was pretty good, considering, who had a star goaltender in nets, and he wasn't that great, right? And so to me, watching Sandin, and I've seen Sandin in a few games because I've watched a lot of Leaf games, he's been really good. And I know that his numbers in the playoffs and the way he plays in the playoffs, and he does make a lot of mistakes. I understand all of that. But as a 22-year-old kid, you can develop that, right? With Erik Gustafsson, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get him really good offensively, but you're going to get a guy defensively that will probably be a super big liability. So you have to play him with a defensive defenseman, which in this case will be Jake McCabe. But I just don't see the point in this deal. Like, the first round pick, to me, no matter what happens, the first round pick, to me, I think is irrelevant, because at this point they're going for Erik Gustafsson. But I just don't see the point. Like, if you're upgrading your D, you're not really upgrading your D. The only thing you're doing is you're looking at the value, going, listen, at the end of the day, we got a defenseman and we got a first round pick. We'll take what we can get. But I don't think that this is an upgrade for the Leafs. I actually think this is a downgrade. Personally speaking, it's a downgrade, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in terms of statistics, you could see how, well-rounded Rasmus Sandin is. And, Jay Fresh, states it right there that he's a young offensive puck-moving defenseman, which is going to be fantastic for the Washington Capitals for years to come. In terms of Erik Gustafsson, he says that he's an offensive defenseman as well, who randomly out of nowhere has gone off the season in a second pair role for the Caps. Very strange turn of events for him, not expected to last. So, I mean, look, he's having, that's the type of guy that he is, essentially. Gustafsson, he's amazing 1 year, and then for a couple of seasons, he's average or below average, and then now he's having a resurgence all of a sudden. So,
Yeah.
I mean, can he be consistent? We'll see what happens here. But it seems like Dubas wants to add more to his team, and he wants to try to create the juggernaut Toronto Maple Leafs to take down the Goliath Tampa Bay Lightning, because, they almost got them last year in 7 games. Jack Campbell outplayed Vasilevsky, in my opinion. And now, they don't want that to happen again. They want to make sure that they're prepared, not only prepared, but they're going to wreck the Tampa Bay Lightning. And what do I rate this trade, essentially? Well, for the Capitals, I give them a 9 on 10.
It's an 8 on 10 for me. And the Leafs,
for the Leafs, if there's another deal that happens and they package that first round pick that they just got, I would say, it gives them so many more room to make another move. Plus, they have Gustafsson, who I do believe will continue to be very good with the Toronto Maple Leafs, at least for the rest of the season. So I'll give them an 8.5, because long term, Sandin is the better player. And in my opinion, I do believe he is still better than Gustafsson. But because Toronto gets that first round pick, they could do anything with that first round pick. They could go out and get another big player and create another big blockbuster trade. So there's that, and Gustafsson is on a roll this season. So, there's an offensive upside to him too.
Look at it this way, okay? So I see people in the comments saying that the Leafs are going to go after Gavrikov. Fine. So at that point, you essentially traded Rasmus Sandin, right, for Erik Gustafsson trade up. Because what you're basically saying is that the Leafs are going to trade a first and a third for Gavrikov. But Gavrikov's a pure rental. And also the other thing, too, that people need to understand is Gavrikov doesn't even want to come to Canada. He's made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to waive his no-move clause to come to Canada. So if the Leafs manage to pull it off, they're essentially trading a first and a third for a player that's a pure rental. And then Gustafsson's also a pure rental, which means that you've essentially traded away a young 22-year-old defenseman for 2 rentals. So you basically need to make it past the first round. And you need to basically...
They have no choice. If they do all these moves, not only is Dubas trying to secure himself a contract, he's trying to secure a guaranteed first playoff win for the Toronto Maple Leafs since 2004.
But this is what I'm saying. It's a huge risk for Toronto that may pay off, or maybe absolutely bonkers to the point where they lose to Tampa in the first round and Kyle Dubas loses his job. And that's as simple as that. And to be honest, I understand what Kyle Dubas is trying to do. I get it 100%. He's got to go and he's got to be bold. And I get it. We've asked Kyle Dubas to be bold for a long time, and he has. He's starting to do that now. But this is a huge risk for me. I'm a big Sandin guy, so maybe people might call me crazy and say, "Oh, Luca, you're going crazy." But to be honest, to me personally, I think Rasmus Sandin is an absolute stud, and I think the Capitals absolutely win this deal, regardless of the fact that they gave away Boston's first round pick. Because
Yeah.
if the Leafs flip it, it doesn't even matter. Like
Yeah.
at that point, it just doesn't even matter.
And we just wanted
So
to say thank you everyone for tuning into this live NHL trade breakdown. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Like this video and also comment in the comment section below who won this deal. What are your thoughts? And we would like to hear from the Toronto Maple Leafs fan
yeah,
base and also the Washington Capitals fan base. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast. Potentially another trade breakdown. Today is wild. Patty Kane got traded. You guys could check out that video. We covered that deal. We covered the Puliarvi trade as well today and all the other trades that happened. So, guys, thank you so much once again, and we'll see you soon.